Why is Lethal Company a great game? Well, first, because it's a comedy horror game. There are a lot of comedy horror movies, but comedy horror in games is rare. They're becoming more popular in recent years thanks to the continuously fantastic indie scene, specifically on sites like itch.io and Steam. Look at games like Squirrel Stapler or Night at the Gates of Hell, or even Zeeker's other game before Lethal Company, The Upturned. Now, of course, there are a lot of horror games with comedic aspects. Think about Resident Evil or even Silent Hill. Both of those have parts in it that are obviously meant to be kind of funny or silly, but I'm talking about games that have a equal parts horror and equal parts comedy mixture, and I think Lethal Company is definitely one of those. From the outset, Lethal Company doesn't take itself overly seriously. The goofy character designs, the silly but amazingly catchy tune that introduces you when you first load into the game, the running animation, I mean, look at this. This legit made me giggle the first time we played, and it was only like 10 minutes in, and just from my character running around. I want to start off by talking about how important and fantastic the sound design in this game is. The sound effects in Lethal Company are incredibly punchy, but they aren't overly loud. They're just very noticeable. Defined thunks and clunks, such as the hiss and the ka-chunk of the door opening of the ship, or the ding of a day passed during the quota period. Not to mention that almost every single item has a unique sound used to represent picking it up or setting it down. And I find these item pickups and drop sounds strangely calming. Sometimes when I go to sleep, I'll literally listen to people playing Lethal Company, and the sound of them picking up and dropping items is actually relaxing to me. And to me, it's a big deal that something so subtle is there in this game, because yes, the sounds are noticeable and calming, but that sets them against everything else. The silly movements and bright sounds of the game are set at ends with the other half of the game. Continuing the theme of sound design, when you step out onto one of the moons when you first arrive, it gets eerily quiet right after the ship doors open. Maybe there's just the wind, and then occasionally an ambient piano track will kick in. I don't know how to perfectly describe these tracks that play, but I'll do my best. They kind of remind me of Minecraft's ambient music, but they're somehow more unsettling. Like, they are calming and relaxing and nice to listen to, but they have a dissonant tone to them in a way. The melody is nice, but the sound of them is just off enough that it makes you uneasy. You'll see birds, the manticoils flying around, hear them flap off, and the buzzing of the locusts nearby, and not to mention the loud whir that the facilities give off themselves, indicating that something is going on inside. And then you make your way into the door. The sound of the door is loud, creaky, and pronounced, and you know when you're inside. It gets deathly still, the new ambience being the distant whir of machines, as well as your footsteps on the metal grating below or even the concrete. Unless, of course, there's a turret that spawns in the first room, in which case there's the loud sound of gunfire, and suddenly, not only are you shocked, but you're dead. Jacob? I have a bad feeling that he did not. Oh my god. Oh man. Fuck. If you aren't immediately killed upon entering a facility, this is when the real gameplay loop of the game begins. You start by walking around these desolate buildings on these abandoned moons, looking for random junk. A magnifying glass, or a puzzle cube, a rubber ducky, or a car engine for some reason, a basket of bottles, etc., etc. All of them make noise when you pick them up, as I mentioned earlier. Some make even more noise, like the toy robot, which for some reason sounds like clanking machinery, but also the distant laughter of children. Or the clacking teeth, which, like an old-fashioned toy, continue to clack away in your pocket, cartoonishly. While collecting junk, we begin to hear more things. The hiss of steam, the scary cry of a baby for some reason, the random creak of metal as we walk around the facility, or any number of the entities that scuttle around and hunt us down.
Also death.
This is the real wrench in the game's gameplay loop. the entities. Some of them are just straight up monsters, alien beings that inhabit these moons, like the hoarding bug, my personal favorite. These little guys scuttle around and steal your loot, or, well, steal loot that would be yours but is now theirs. They aren't aggressive unless you take things in front of them, typically, because sometimes they will just randomly get angry. Here's an example of one that was just an asshole for basically no reason. But they're cute and they're silly. I kind of dig them. They do this little arm thing where if you look at them, they like raise their arms at you. I think that's pretty funny. And now that I've told you about the hoarding bug, I can tell you that there are a bunch of other entities that will give you problems that aren't even as nice as they are. Like the coil head, which is only supposed to move when you aren't looking at it, and very quickly replaces your head with a spring if you look away for too long. The coil head's sound design is fantastic, by the way. You can hear their footsteps like trudging around, and they will stop when you look at them, and their head will spring forward, making this loud sproing sound that kind of informs you to just how close you were to death before catching them. And also, the sound it makes when they get you is almost like your head being popped off by the spring, and your head just flies off. Or the Bracken, who's kind of a variation of that game. You want to look at him, but not for too long. You just want to take a peek. If you look for too long, he gets angry and then runs after you and will kill you. And if you don't look for too long, he will sneak up behind you and kill you. He will literally just come up and break your neck. The way that you know the Bracken has been seen and is going to run away is he will bristle, his parts of his body will move, and you'll also hear this bristling sound and like a hiss and a low roar sound. So you know, hey, I saw him and he's gonna go away. And if you don't look at him long enough, well, you'll hear another great piece of sound design, which is your neck being broken by him. His movement is incredibly loud and sounds like nothing else in the game. So if you hear them, you best get going. And so I think I've made my point. Sound design is really important in this game, but every one of these entities has a different way of interacting with not only their environment, but also you as the player. And when you mix them all together, you get this big bowl of horror gaming anxiety, but also all of these different possibilities of things that can happen that can cause humorous moments. And the more people that you add to that bowl adds to more of the tension and hilarity. Not to mention the traps that you have to look out for, like the mines and the steam that can block your vision.
There's a switch over here.
Or the gaps that you can accidentally fall into.
Oh no!
Oh, and not only are there monsters in the facilities waiting for you, but there are ones outside that appear as well, like the tree giant or the eyeless dogs. No! Alright, bye everyone.
Oh, I got David.
Or the little girl that can go inside or outside.
Guys, we're gonna Haley's dead if we don't start the
Oh, I see it. I see.
Oh no.
Or the mask that can go inside or outside.
Do you have one? Can't. Ah! Oh my god! Sally!
It's the way all of these different systems interact with each other. The different traps, the monsters, the randomly generated pathing of the facilities, as well as your need to get loot or you lose the game. So imagine you're minding your business with an armful of loot, looking at a coil head, when a Bracken comes up behind you and breaks your neck. The possibilities in this game are endless, and as Zeekerss adds to them, they're only going to grow. Not to mention the little things, like the bridge collapsing that you can have happen, or the fact that you can whisper and the eyeless dogs won't detect you, or the fact that there is a secret insanity system at play that only affects the ambient noise and the little girl's chance of haunting you. It's these little things like this that the average player probably won't notice that make this game great and show Zeekerss' prowess as a developer. These little things add up. The fact that there are really valuable collectibles like gold bars, or how the little ghost girl works, or that the shotgun from the Nutcrackers can actually be taken from them when they are killed and can be used to kill other enemies. And it's these intricate little details that show how much care was put into this game, but also the want for the players to just have fun. When I found out that you could actually whisper and not be heard by the dogs, I was like in shock for a moment. I thought that was so fucking cool, and I still do. So, why is Lethal Company a great game? Why is it a great comedy horror game? It takes itself seriously enough to be a good game and have scary moments, but not too seriously that it doesn't want to have fun with itself and you. I can exemplify this just by saying that you can mask up with those masks, become possessed, and fuck over your teammates. Or have your neck broken while going around with the air horn that plays the Alexis Texas moan. Don't look that up. The horror in this game is paid attention to. The atmosphere is great. It's dark. It's scary. There are these fantastic creepy ambient tracks and noises, and the monsters are also well designed. But there's also the silly air horn and the boombox that plays these funky tracks. And you can kill your teammates by dropping a ladder on them, or get mad at a loot bug for being a dickhead and it raises its arms at you like, come on! There's a serious threat that you have to deal with and a goal that you have to accomplish. The proximity voice chat in Lethal Company is absolutely fantastic. That's another part of the sound design that is just nailed. The distance of the voice and the fading that happens is perfect. The echoes, it's perfect for scares, it's perfect for comedy. Seekers has done a phenomenal job, and I want more proximity voice chat in horror games that is just like this. So to wrap it all up, Lethal Company is a simple game. You go and collect loot, but the complications that are added on top of it can be complex. The horror is there in these situations, but so is the comedy. Lethal Company is just a great game all around because of that. At its core, it's simple, but it blooms from that simplicity. But as I've said when talking about games, I'm not a game designer or a programmer, so I just tried to discuss what I can tangibly experience as a player, and I hope I was able to explain that well to you. Lethal Company is a fantastic game. It is worth the money that you will spend on it. If you have friends to play it with, or even just randoms, I bet you'll have a great time.